I think I'm going to launch a new series called Your Politicians Are Even Dumber Than You Think. And I'm going to kick it off today with the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, who is a billionaire and who has his sights set on a 2028 presidential run. Now, one of the things you have to do if you want to be president as a Democrat is to establish that you are tough on climate issues. Do your policies actually have to improve the climate? No, of course not, because policies really can't improve the climate. But you have to talk the talk and look tough. And so he did just that. He threw his weight behind this massive piece of legislation in Illinois called the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. And I just have to say, anytime you see equitable in a piece of legislation, it's probably going to be bad news bears for everybody. And that's exactly what has happened. It's only been like 2 years since this thing went into effect, and already the editorial board of the Chicago Tribune, which is a very left-wing media outlet, is crying uncle. So here's what happened. CEJA, which is the acronym for the bill, requires the state to become 100% carbon-free by 2045, which is an insane goal, because not only does that mean that you have to transition off of fossil fuels, it means you have to find other energy sources that can meet the demand and the increasing demand that will continue to come for a state that has almost 13 million residents. So it's an unachievable, impossible thing. And what's happening is that the legislation is already starting to push private businesses out of the state, which this piece details. They talk about how power plant owners are literally like carving up their facilities and shipping them off to other states that are still business friendly and want cheap energy. Now, all of this is bad enough and means that the people in Illinois are probably going to have shortages and also see their electricity prices skyrocket. But as the piece goes on to note, they did something even dumber in this bill, which is that they said the majority of private companies had to be out by like 2030, but they created a loophole where government-backed utilities and nonprofits could continue in the state until like 2040. Which, as the editorial board points out, is really ridiculous because the companies emit the same carbon either way. Why does one get a loophole? Anyways, now this one company, Dairyland, that got to be a part of the loophole is scooping up all of the businesses at like a really cheap price. But the company doesn't just serve Illinois. It turns out that a lot of its service area is in Wisconsin, and a spokesperson told the editorial board the facilities are not directed towards one project or industry. They are to provide capacity to meet the needs of growing demand across the board, regardless of future use of energy from these resources. Market conditions, including energy demand, and our members will determine the ultimate outsourcing of our resources. Basically, this guy made it impossible for energy companies to operate in his state, and the one kind of company he is allowed to stay has no intention of even prioritizing the needs of the residents in his state. Meanwhile, pretty much the same amount of carbon is going to be produced because this one company that got the loophole is just going to buy up all the other companies and keep making carbon.